And what is going on, full-time family? It is time to break down the Ultimate Fighter 28 finale between Dos Anjos and Usman in the main event. This is going to be the prelim portion. We'll jump right into it because there's so many fights to break down this week. It's unreal. We got 2 Bellators, I believe, 2 UFCs. I don't even know if I'm going to have time to get to them all. So let's just jump straight into this, see what we got time for before we got to get to work. Alright, first fight of the night is between Raoni Barcelos and Chris Gutierrez. In this fight, I'm going to be taking Raoni Barcelos. Raoni is currently riding a 5-fight winning streak, and he won his UFC debut via third round KO TKO against Kurt Holloway. Chris Gutierrez is making his UFC debut, currently riding a 3-fight winning streak. This fight's a tough one to call. Chris Gutierrez is a little younger and has been more active, also slightly more experienced fighter, but Raoni Barcelos was fighting and beating tougher competition outside the UFC, so I'll give the edge to Barcelos off tops due to the strength of schedule, but he did take about a year and a half off between his last 2 fights. Super tough fight for me to call, but I'll give the edge to Raoni Barcelos. Moving on to the next fight of the night. We've got Tim Means versus Ricky Rainey. This is going to be a fun fight for sure. And in this fight, I'm going to be giving the edge to Tim Means. Ricky Rainey's a former Bellator fighter and dangerous striker that lost his UFC debut back in April against Muslim Salikov. Tim Means is a UFC veteran who's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, but he lost his last 2 via split decision and is slightly younger and more experienced fighter, also with a lot more UFC experience. Now, I'm not super confident in this one still, because Ricky Rainey can definitely be dangerous, especially standing up. But I'm going to give the edge to Tim Means. His last 2 losses are split decisions. He's been fighting some of the toughest unranked welterweights in the world. Ricky Rainey can win this fight for sure, but I think Tim Means should win as long as he can avoid being knocked out, which means it's going to be that much harder for Ricky Rainey because Tim Means has only been knocked out 1 time in, I believe, 38 fights. So I think Ricky Rainey to win this fight's going to, I mean, he could win a decision as well, but I think his best chance would probably be to win via KO TKO. But Tim Means has that experience, and, you know, so I'm giving the edge to Tim Means, unless he gets KO'd or loses a close decision. I'm not super confident in this one. It's not just only a puncher's chance. Ricky Rainey's definitely dangerous, but I'm giving the edge to the vet Tim Means. Moving on to the next fight. The last fight of the prelims, at least the Fight Pass prelims, the early prelims, we got Daryl Horcher versus Roosevelt Roberts. In this fight, man, I'm for sure going to be taking Roosevelt Roberts. And the reason is Roosevelt Roberts went 6-1 as an amateur. Now he's 6-0 at 24 years old. Daryl Horcher lost his UFC debut on short notice to Khabib, and since he's went 1-1 in the UFC, winning a split decision against Daryl Horcher and losing a unanimous decision to Scott Holtzman. I'm for sure going to take Roosevelt Roberts, man. He lost his first amateur fight. Since then, he's finished 12 opponents in a row in the tops in his 6 amateur fights and pro fights he's had since then. So he lost like his very first amateur fight, I believe, and since then he's just finished everybody he's fought, and he's only 24 years old. Now, he hasn't been fighting the highest level competition in the world, so I'm not guaranteeing a win by any means. He's only 24 years old, riding a 12-fight winning streak. He's finished every opponent with submissions and KO TKO, so clearly he's well-rounded enough to not just knock you out. He can submit you as well. And he's not getting necessarily thrown at the wolves completely in this fight. Daryl Horcher is tough, but his only win in the UFC came via split decision, and he wasn't fighting the toughest competition in the world outside the UFC either. So I'm going to definitely be taking Roosevelt Roberts to win this fight. Moving on to the next. The first fight of the Fox prelims, I believe. Joseph Benavidez versus Alex Perez. I'm going to be taking Joseph Benavidez in this fight. For me, Alex Perez currently riding an 8-fight winning streak. He's 3-0 in the UFC after winning his fight on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series via first-round submission to earn his UFC contract. Joseph Benavidez, though, has been one of the best flyweights/fighters in the world for a long time. he gets a little bit overlooked due to the fact he wasn't able to win a championship by beating Dominic Cruz or Demetrius Johnson, but still through 29 pro fights at the highest level, the only losses for Joseph Benavidez were to Dominic Cruz and Demetrius Johnson, two of the best fighters in the world, and he literally beat everybody else. He lost his most recent fight, of course, to Sergio Pettis, but Pettis is one of the best flyweights up and coming in the world, not named Henry Cejudo, Dillashaw, or Johnson. I mean, he's one of the best flyweights in the world, not named those guys, but he's also one of the best up and coming flyweights. And as far as that is concerned, as far as the Pettis versus Benavidez, also Benavidez was coming off like a year and a half layoff when Sergio Pettis beat him, and it was a close fight. So just because Sergio Pettis beat him that night, I'm not gonna say Sergio Pettis is a overall better fighter than Joseph Benavidez with his resume and all the work he's put in. But he just got the W that night. Who knows? We might see a rematch, but Joseph Benavidez is still one of the best flyweights in the world, unless in his time off his skills completely fell off a cliff, and I don't think that happened. So I'm going to be taking Joseph Benavidez for sure. Moving on to the next fight, we got Rick Glenn taking on Kevin Aguilar. In this fight, let me get this, unless I'm picking Rick Glenn, of course, am I? In this fight, we're going to be going with, oops, wrong notepad. You guys just saw some notes for my UFC Adelaide predictions that I've started. Alright, so for this fight between Rick Glenn and Kevin Aguilar, Rick Glenn is 3-2 in the UFC, coming off a split decision over Dennis Bermudez, and a few months ago lost a unanimous decision fight to Miles Jury. Kevin Aguilar is he lost to Miles Jury before that. He lost to Dennis Bermudez a few months ago. Kevin Aguilar is currently riding a 7-fight winning streak. He went 8-1 in Legacy before fighting to a split decision against the undefeated Joey Gomez on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. Rick Glenn's win over Dennis Bermudez was impressive, but I think in this fight I'm going to take Kevin Aguilar. And I'm picking Kevin Aguilar to win this fight. Aguilar's only got one pro loss on his record, while Glenn has more UFC experience. Aguilar has been fighting some tough competition in Legacy, stringing together some good wins to earn his UFC contract, including becoming Legacy's inaugural 145-pound champion, winning a couple 5-round fights in the process. So Kevin Aguilar's cardio has been tested. He became the Legacy champion. He's fought some tough competition. I'll take him to get the win, but of course, the Gladiator Rick Glenn could. I'm just giving Kevin Aguilar the edge. So, with that being said, guys, actually, we're going to do it all on the same video. I was going to say we're going to cut it off here and then do the other half of the fight breakdown on YouTube, but since the fights are today, we'll just continue on. I don't got time to be, you know what I'm saying, breaking all the prelim, main event for all these fights coming up. I got to get in gear with all the work I've been doing off of YouTube and all the work. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I got a lot of shit to catch up on, a lot of stuff to do. So let's get this all done on the same video. All right, the first fight of the main card is going to be between Antonina Shevchenko and Jin Yun Kim. Come on, man, this isn't even hard for me. It's not. I don't even know if it's going to be competitive. It might be, but Antonina Shevchenko was already pretty much going to beat anybody you put in front of her, unless I guess they were a super heavy grappler. Because on her fight on the Contender Series, we did potentially see some holes in her ground game. The commentators pointed that out. When she was actually on her back. Now, it's going to be hard to get her to her back, and of course, you're probably going to get busted up on the way. But with that being said, that would probably, if you could find any weak spot of Antonina Shevchenko's game, or the weakest spot, not even weak, because I'm sure she's a great grappler, but I mean, her least strong suit, so her weakest suit, it'd be her ground game, her jiu-jitsu, you know what I'm saying? She hasn't armbarred Juliana Pena like her sister Valentina Shevchenko and showed everybody what she could do on the ground and stuff like that. I mean, we just haven't seen her fight UFC caliber opponents yet. We've seen her fight on the Contender Series, and even that fight, she did get the finish, I believe, in the second or third round, but it took some work. And so now we're in the UFC. I think Antonina wins this fight, partially because she's the better fighter, and partially because Ji Yeon Kim took this fight on short notice when Antonina Shevchenko's original opponent pulled out. which not good, you know what I'm saying? Unfortunate. We were looking forward to that fight. I think she was going to be fighting Ashley Evans Smith, if I'm not all the way mistaken, who was forced out of the fight with, I believe, an injury. So Jiyeon Kim is stepping in on short notice, and you're fighting a Shevchenko sister on short notice. You always has a chance of going down like Valentina versus Priscilla Cachoeira. I'm taking Antonina Shevchenko. Not much explanation here. This is probably going to be a striking battle. Jiyeon Kim's not known for her wrestling, you know what I'm saying, and her grappling. I don't think she's just going to try and force Antonina Shevchenko to the ground, which you would probably have to do if you're going to try and beat somebody as talented and experienced as Antonina is as a Muay Thai fighter and a striker. You know, I'm sure she rolls in the meantime and she's got some ground skills, but as far as MMA level, Valentina level, just not there, you know what I'm saying? So we will see what happens. Probably my lock of the night. This is probably who I would pick like 100% to win. I mean, Jiyeon Kim could come out here and shock the world, but I don't see it happening in Antonina Shevchenko's UFC debut. We'll see though. El Pantera Antonina Shevchenko making her debut. Moving on, we got Darren the Dentist Stewart taking on Edmund Shabazian. Man, this is a tough fight for me to call, but I'm giving the edge to Darren Stewart, you guys. Edmund Shabazian is only 21 years old at 7-0 and has finished all 7 of his pro opponents. And one guy in the amateurs as well. And he earned his UFC contract with the first round TKO. I believe on the Contender Series, maybe not, but either way, his most recent fight on that winning streak was a first round KO TKO. Darren the Dentist Stewart is currently riding a 2-fight winning streak in 2018 after losing 3 in a row in 2017. So 2018 going a lot better for Darren Stewart than 2017 did. Tough fight for me to call because both these guys are dangerous. One of these guys is most likely going to sleep for sure. I'm actually going to be giving the edge to Darren Stewart, who's a little more experienced and has for sure been fighting higher level competition. 2 of Darren Stewart's losses came by way of submission and 1 via decision, and the young Edmund Shabazian has won all 7 of his fights via KO TKO. So not only is he fighting higher level competition than he's ever faced, but also he's either going to have to KO or TKO the experienced UFC caliber striker that's never been KO'd, or find a way to beat him by decision. But I'm giving the edge to the Dentist Darren Stewart. Moving on. Let's see, we got Pedro Munoz taking on Brian Caraway. This is going to be a good fight, good bantamweight fight. This is a tough fight for me to call right here. Brian Caraway is a great wrestler. He's got some legit skills and can definitely win this fight. But I'm going to be giving the edge to Pedro Munoz. Brian Caraway's 4-2 in his last 6 fights, although his last loss to Cody Stamann, I actually thought that he won that fight. But he lost via split decision. That split decision was his first fight since his split decision win over Aljamain Sterling back in May of 2016. So, that was his first fight back in a couple years. But, I mean, I believe he changed fight teams and stuff. And I think Brian Caraway's got a real potential to go on a winning streak here. But we will see. Pedro Munoz is still a very dangerous fighter, and I'm actually giving him the edge to win this fight specifically. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Caraway came out here, won this fight. He could even dominate this fight, honestly. It's one of those fights. That's how close it is. Brian Caraway could come out here, dominate this fight with this wrestling, or Pedro Munoz could come out here and get the finish, and you'll just think, you know, it was a dominant performance either way. Or it could be a really close fight. These guys are pretty evenly matched, honestly. But the thing about Caraway is, even though he was inactive for a while, upon return, I believe he's got a whole new fire. Like his training, everything is just better. So, he could be a whole new monster in this fight. Honestly, we will see. Not super confident, clearly, but yeah, I'm gonna pick the younger, more active and experienced Pedro Munoz. It's a tough fight. I think Caraway's a great wrestler. He can use that to win a decision, but Pedro Munoz was able to avoid being out-grappled by the very talented Brett Johns en route to a unanimous decision victory. Not the same level wrestler, but still a solid grappler. But he still hasn't fought a guy with the wrestling skills as Caraway, so I can't be super confident in this prediction. Caraway does have some very impressive wins in the UFC. Aljamain Sterling, the fight with Cody Stamann. But the fact that Pedro Munoz is younger, more experienced, and more active, he's fought 6 fights in the time Caraway has fought that one. I'll just give Pedro Munoz the slight edge, but like I said, it's a slight edge. Caraway could come in here and beat Pedro Munoz, hold him down, fuck around TKO, submit him. I mean, Caraway's definitely a dangerous fighter coming off that split decision loss, but I'll give the edge to the young Punisher. All right, a couple more fights on this card to break down and predict. This was not on the breakdowns earlier, and I don't know why they got her. You guys see this? That's how you know. Whenever I did my notes to break down the card, these gut fighters weren't here. And clearly you see she's way out of position. You see this? Macy Kiozone. Like, look at everybody else. You see how they're like way over here on the right side. Way over there on the right side. But you go to this one. They got this Macy chick, like right her figurette, right? That's pretty weird. This new website's weird. Can't even see the this stuff. I mean, I'll just give you a quick breakdown. I didn't get to actually go look at their fights or look at research them or nothing like that. I've heard of Penny Kinzad. I don't really know much about Macy Chiozone. Let's just do a quick research on these girls. Penny Kinzad. MMA. Penny Kienzad, 10-3. Alright, fighting out of Sweden. She's taking on the 2-0 Macy Chiasson. Chick beat Carrie Hughes. Bianca Diamoni. Lost to Sarah Kaufman and Invicta. Lost to all these girls in a row in Invicta. Okay, but 2015, 2017, 2018. Came back, got a couple W's. Yeah, this is interesting, man. None of these girls are on Cyborg's level. I don't even know what we're doing here. All these girls are supposed to be ready for Cyborg. Get the fuck out of here. I'm taking Penny Kinzad, guys. I'm not taking a 2-0 chick again to win the show. She might. I wouldn't put any money on it. I don't know enough about these chicks. I didn't watch the show. But I'm for sure taking Penny Kinzad. She's the only chick I really heard of going into the show, on the show. I mean, there were a couple girls, but mainly most of the girls on the show were former bantamweights and shit like that anyways. She's only 26 years old with 13 pro fights. Macy's 27 with 2 pro fights. Yeah, I'm just going to take the much more experienced and Penny Kienzad that I've actually heard of. I mean, yeah, she lost some fight. Neither one of these girls are on Cyborg's level, let's be honest. I mean, this girl at least has a win over Lena Landsberg back in the day. Neither one of these girls are ready for Cyborg. They're both Cyborg food. I don't even know about this. Now that I look, they even have her listed at bantamweight. But she won the show. Alright, guys, let's get back to the actual UFC. That reminds me of like the TUF, where people came off and became a fucking champion. You know what I'm saying? Like, you win this TUF and you're a champion, even though you had to beat no UFC fighters. It's like these girls, you go through TUF fighting non-UFC caliber competition, and then, you know what I'm saying, you get to the UFC and you're kind of in Fucksville. I mean, but hey, it is what it is. The way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I'm giving the edge to Penny Kienzad. I don't even know where this, my green check went on this. I got Penny, guys. Alright, moving on. Justin Espino versus Tim Frazier. These are the heavyweights that won their portion of the show. Now, these are some actual heavyweights. Are they UFC ready? Probably not, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm going to be giving the edge to Juan Espino, man. These TUF shows, after looking at these 2 fights that won the show, I'm kind of like, what? Like, are these the best women's featherweights and heavyweights that are really out there unsigned? I mean, okay. I mean, I guess there's so many promotions now, you know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of hot prospects out there, but neither one of these guys have been really fighting killers outside the UFC, nothing like that. I'm giving the edge to Espino, but Justin Frazier's currently riding a 3-fight winning streak, all first-round finishes over not-so-great competition outside the UFC, but he has finished all 10 of his wins in the first round. Juan Espino is fighting out of American Top Team, but also wasn't fighting the best competition outside the UFC, so this is almost a toss-up for me. I'll give the edge to Espino solely because he fights for one of the best teams in the world with American Top Team. This is a toss-up other than that, though. I mean, neither one of these guys have beat any really impressive names. They both won the show, okay? I got Espino. He trains with the American Top Team. Boom. It's that simple. All right, let's get to the actual UFC fighters. Until they win their fights, they're not even on the UFC roster, so that's what this is here for, though. The TUF finale. Those are the people that won TUF, so even though those fights are probably my least favorite fights on the card, that's actually why we have this card, because they won the Ultimate Fighter, so put some respect on their names. Now, let's get to the main event. Kamaru Usman versus Rafael dos Anjos. I'm taking Usman. Big time. Usman is dangerous, man. This is a tough fight for RDA. RDA needs that fucking tag of fighting anyone, anywhere, any place, because signing up to fight Kamaru Usman and you get some respect from me, because this is no easy task. And I mean, yeah, fighting Usman he's probably the best. I don't want to say he's up there, because of course you got Woodley, you got Covington that are still ranked, and Askren's here now. You got some guys up there, but Kamaru Usman is for sure one of the best welterweights in the world, for sure. RDA is the former UFC lightweight champion who's now fighting at welterweight. He's 3-1 since moving up to the division, only losing to Colby Covington in an interim title fight back in July. Kamaru Usman's undefeated in the UFC, and not only has he not lost a fight in the UFC, he hasn't lost a round. He's outlanded and outgrappled each of his opponents, tough opponents, en route to his top 5 ranking in the world at welterweight. For sure picking Kamaru Usman to win this fight, and probably more dominantly than Colby Covington, who won via unanimous decision. I think the only way RDA wins this fight is if he catches Usman in a submission. We haven't seen RDA knock out anybody at welterweight yet, and now he's fighting probably the most dangerous welterweight on the planet, not named Tyron Woodley. So I'm for sure giving the edge to the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman. They call me Kamaru Usman, they're my Nigerian Nightmare. To find an opponent that wants to fight me is quite rare. Yeah. UFC Yankovic, anybody? All right, guys. With that being said, thank you guys for checking out the Ultimate Fighter Season 28 finale breakdown and predictions. Now I got to break down 2 Bellator cards and the UFC Adelaide that's happening Saturday. So with that being said, it is what it is, man. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments, and we'll be doing a fight companion tonight, watching all these fights live, so make sure you check that out as well. Tonight, when the prelims are live, we will be live on YouTube. Salute to the full-time family. It is what it is. Let everyone else know what you think in the comments. I'm out.